Hey folks, it's Don with Florida Deere. Today we're going to go over a video on basic maintenance. Not to be confused with scheduled maintenance, and I'm not going to use the word routine because I guess that could be basic or it could be scheduled. So these are the 7 topics we're going to cover, hopefully pretty quickly. The first one is clean the tractor. That's number 1. We'll start off with the easiest and kind of go to the more complicated. Number 2 is check the tires. This would include lug nut tightness, tire pressure, and condition of the tires. You can probably check that weekly, maybe more often, maybe less often. Unfortunately, to be fair, I probably don't check it hardly even monthly. I just kind of look at the tires and they look like they're pumped up, so I'm good to go. I should probably check them a little bit more deliberately than that, but you know, we all live busy lives. So number 3, clean the battery area and the radiator screen. Those are important features. Again, you could probably do those, you know, weekly, something around that time frame, maybe every 5 to 10 hours. Number 4, check all dipsticks and radiator fluids. So you got your transmission fluid or your hydraulic fluid, you got your engine oil, you know, and then you can check your radiator, see how it's doing, make sure it has the correct level of fluid. Number 5, check your 3-point linkage and rear PTO, just the condition of the shaft, see if it's, you know, if there's a leak at the seal, anything like that. And we'll kind of get into more depth with that in a minute here. And number 6, check your loader hardware and grease it. This could be something that you do every 5 to 10 hours, once a week, once a month, something like that. That will certainly depend on how much use you put the loader through. If you hardly ever use the loader, it's probably not as important. If you use the loader a whole lot, it's much more important to probably grease it a lot more often. Probably makes sense. And number 7, check and grease all U-joints and the Mid-PTO. And I stuck those together because we'll be underneath the tractor for those items. And then any other grease points that we might find, although I don't know that there's a whole bunch of other grease points if you know, encompass the U-joints. I think that's about it, but the slide maybe on the rear PTO, but we'll again get into that. So anyway, I hope you stay with me for the whole video. I'm going to try to shorten it as much as I can, but we're going to try to kind of cover a lot of material here. If you decide that you like this video, hit the like button. And if you want to subscribe to see more videos like it, hit the subscribe button at the bottom right-hand corner or at the upper left-hand corner at the end of the video. Thanks for watching. So just sped this up. This is the clean tractor, and at the end I'll have a picture of the dirty tractor. First thing we'll check is the tire pressure. These are supposed to be 22. There you have it, it's 19.5. Leave that off because we'll air it up. These are supposed to be 20, I believe. It's 16.5, so we'll leave that off to air it up. So I decided to speed up this part of the video because my tire gauge wasn't working, so I was going to go grab a different tire gauge. And then sometimes I just figure that if I just reset the tire gauge, let it turn off and then turn it back on, it's accurate again. So anyways, that's why this is sped up and narrated. So I spared you the theatrics of me tightening the lug nuts. I will put the torque specification for the lug nuts on here when I go check it out. I am not a big torque specification guy when it comes to lug nuts. I figure pretty tight is good and too tight is broke. So you know, I think that generally is what a lot of people probably subscribe to. So anyway, so that's what I'm going with on those, and they're all tight. I checked them. And the other thing I was talking about was just checking the condition of the tires. And as you can see, I do have a plug here. I think, yep, there we go, 1 and 2. Plugs right there, and it might be a couple that I missed. 1.5 both front and rear. The other side was much closer. It was only down about 2.5 and about 1.5 on the rear. So the other side lost a little less. So I have a little bit of air loss over several months in each of the tires, but I don't think that's too bad. And so anyway, we'll move on to the next item. Okay, the next item is checking the radiator screen. Just pull that up. And I check this pretty often, so this is one thing I do check often. I just heard horror stories about it, so I think I have one spot right there. All right, that's clean. Then you can check in there too to see if it's, you know, gunked up. I'm probably not doing as well with the camera as I could maybe, but it's actually pretty clean. And then one of the things I saw in the manual says to clean around the battery, but the battery area looks to be pretty clean. Again, even if I don't get to washing it, I do spray it off. Make sure the big chunks of stuff get out there. Make sure these kind of things are taken care of. The tractor's almost 2 years old and has, you know, almost 200 hours on it. And as you can tell, it's, you know, pretty clean. And, you know, I think that's just, you know, I mean, if I'm going to spend this much money on these tractors, on an item like this, I'm going to make sure I take pretty darn good care of it. So that's good for those two things, and we'll move on to the next one. So we conveniently segued into this, which was just checking the radiator fluid. And this thing bubbles out, I think, every time I open it. Like it's always been to the top. And pretty much has done the same. When I put this back on, it'll squeeze some out. Yep, there it goes. So I'll walk around, and yeah, it looks like, I still really can't see it. It's cold, so I'll go ahead and throw some in there. I'm probably down like half a mark. So it's probably every time I check it, that little bit comes out. Okay, so the thing I like to do here is take out the dipstick for the engine, wipe it clean, and then put it back in to do a clean test. And what I hate is that they made it in such a not great place, but I like to take it out. And then on here you can kind of tell where it is pretty cleanly because, you know, it's black. And for those of you that aren't familiar with diesel engines, it'll be basically black almost immediately. Just the nature of the engine, I guess, just sort of causes it to go black pretty quickly, and that's okay. So the transmission dipstick, or the hydraulic fluid, depending on what you want to call it, what I like to do is do the same thing, and then plug it back in there, bring it out, and then since it's hard to see, I like to put it down and then roll it. Oops, I moved it around. And then to see exactly where on there I'm supposed to be, and I think it was right about here. So that's in the middle of where it needs to be, above the add and below the check cold. And it is cold. I haven't run it since earlier today, and it was just briefly. So put that back in there. That seemed to be good. The radiator fluid was good, and the oil was good. And this is something that you should check way more than I have been checking recently, but it's a new tractor, so, you know, it's not like I check. I mean, my truck has 160,000 miles on it. It's 8 years old, and I don't check it very often either. Probably because it's just not that different from the previous time I check it. So anyway, probably once a week, once a month is probably all that's really required. I know there are some people that will check it like every time they use a piece of equipment, but I'm just not one of those guys. So anyways, on to the next item. Okay, so basically what I do here is just kind of look around and make sure these I guess ball joints rotate nicely. I know there are guys that say you should grease these, and then there's a camp that says you shouldn't grease them. I've never greased them. I've on the 322 that I have, I've kind of greased them only because they were sort of old and sort of rotted, or not rotted, but you know, they're sort of rusted there a lot. So, but these are not the case. Now, these I like these turnbuckles on the 3-point hitch for the 1 series. I know some people don't like them, but I personally think they're pretty cool. I like how you can tighten them pretty good. And now I have lost pins, and I think this side multiple times, or maybe it was that one, or maybe it was both of them, I can't remember, doing bush hogging, but I've never lost a pin with any other work that I've done on 3-point equipment. And I guess it's just, maybe I bush hogged the wrong way or something, I'm not sure. But you could check up here, which we did when we put the hydraulic link back on, and then this piece is good. And this one's been beat up because my tiller, it's very tight fit on the tiller that I have for whatever reason. There's nothing else I can check here really. All the turnbuckles look good. The pins are all there. The bolts that hold the pins in there are nice and tight. The hitch pins that hold the bottom end of these arms are good. I've never taken these off. They look like they're fine. So again, I guess you could grease these, or put some like WD-40 type, you know, squirtable lubricant in them. My issue with that is I don't know of any 3-point hitches that have been worn out. I mean, I'm sure some of them do, but I've never seen one worn out. And I think when you spray something that's wettish on those, I think it would just attract dirt. So I think it would be a short-lived lubricant. That's just my opinion. There's definitely other people would have different opinions about that. So I always put the little thing on there. And as you can see, this looks like it's pretty clean. It does rotate fine. It's in like Mid-PTO setting right now, so I can rotate it. If you were in Rear PTO selection, you would not be able to move that. Okay folks, this is the stuff I use. Anti-seize lubricant on the PTO shafts. And as you can see, it's slicked up nice and good. I'm not actually going to touch it. I'm just gonna slap that sucker on it. Probably should clean that out. Okay, so what we want to do here is just check these pins, make sure they're not sticking out more on one side than the next. And you basically have 6 on each side, and they all look good. Again, to abbreviate the video, we'll just do one side. They'll look good. The rest of the hardware looks good. This is your bucket level indicator if you did not know. So where that bend is where it's supposed to be level. Now I store my bucket angled up because the flat part of the bucket seems to rest most naturally there. So, and I always park mine inside, so it's not an issue of collecting water. You do what you want with your own bucket. As far as the grease goes, I just use what John Deere recommends, but I'm sure that you could use any sort of equivalent grease and it would be just fine. To each his own. So one final word on the grease. It's rare that I am accused of being liberal about anything, but I think it's okay to be a little liberal about grease. However, I do not subscribe to the there's no such thing as too much grease, because after I got done greasing, I greased quite a bit and then wanted to wipe the fair amount of the excess off, because it really can junk up stuff. If you're touching the tractor or you got so much on there it's dripping out, then that's a problem. Certainly when you're unpinning the bucket, it's right close to that last grease fitting, so you can really get your hands all nasty and stuff, and then you're wiping grease on everything, it seems. So okay, So, this will be the worst part of this whole video. It's just my ability to manage the video down under the tractor. I do not have a lift. I am just not that cool. So, here I am on the floor. And so, right here you have your Mid-PTO. There's a grease fitting in here that we'll get, okay? U-bolt there, and then as you can see, for the slide going back and forth, it is important that you do that. I kind of neglected that once and got that thing all stuck and it wouldn't move, and I thought there was something mechanically wrong with it, like it just would not move. And it was actually, there was so much dirt and dust in the grease that basically made it like a pasty glue that the shaft would not go back and forth inside. You know, the female and male version would not slide at all. So anyways, I cleaned it out, and I eventually figured out what it was and then cleaned it out, re-greased everything. So right here, that's the mechanical front wheel drive. There's a U-joint grease fitting in there. And then, like I said, this is not ideal, but so, and then we'll take off. That thing is in a great location too. I do like these little spinny things. At least they're convenient to operate. And that should slide off, and then giving you access to the grease fitting that's up there. This is the rear part of the shaft that hooks to the transmission, as you can see right there. There's a U-joint right there. I think it's pretty easy to see. Now I lifted the bucket up, turned the tractor on, lifted the bucket up so I can roll it frontwards and backwards right now. So that'll work. And then, let's see. And then up through that hole, you probably can't see it, but there's a U-joint there. And let me tell you, that is the fun one. But that hole, I have greased this before, I think once or twice, so obviously I'm way behind on that. But you can get the grease gun up in there and connected to the grease fitting on that U-joint as well. And I believe that wraps it up. So we have one over there, 2, 3, 4. Oh, actually I forgot one. There's one at the front of the PTO. So there's one at the front of the PTO, mid-PTO, the rear of the PTO, and then for the PTO slide right there. So that's 1, 2, 3. Okay. If you stayed all the way to the end of the video, here's your bonus. As you can see, I'm shooting the light through another hole, but you can see in the middle of that hole, that little round thing, I don't think I can get the focus I need. That is the grease fitting, and it's pointed straight down. I don't know how I could be so lucky, but that's pretty cool. I did get all the other points greased. That is the last one, and it looks like it's going to be relatively easy. So this is what the tractor looked like before I washed it. It was getting pretty nasty. But this does conclude this video. If you feel like I've left something out as far as basic maintenance, please put it in the comments. I do hope you liked the video. If you did, hit the like button. I'd appreciate that. That'd help me out. And if you wanted to see more videos like this about the John Deere 1 Series or John Deere garden tractors, you can hit the subscribe button coming up in one of your, I think, left-hand corner. And there's a couple other videos that are about to auto-load up there too, in case you want to watch those. Thanks for watching.